Today, we're going to be discussing all things Tyler Robinson. We're talking about the caliber of the bullet, the supposed 30-06 that was used. I have a guest today, Mark Feltner, a certified bodyguard who has done extensive research. And this information, this evidence is new. You're not going to hear it on Candace. You're not going to hear it on Barron. And I got to tell you, anyone who has ever watched Joe Rossano's show knows we don't do conspiracies here. I am nonfiction. And this evidence made me say, wow. So you're going to want to tune into this one today. Welcome to the Joe Rossano Show. As promised, folks, we have evidence. We have new discoveries nobody else is talking about. And things don't shock me very often, folks, and this actually did. And we're going to take you step by step. Joining me today, former U.S. Marine, certified bodyguard, Mark Feltner. Mark Feltner, thank you for this time.
Thank you, Joe.
Mark Feltner, question for you. What was it that made you say, hey, you know what? Something seems off here. Let me research this. Like, what sparked you to do research into the Charlie Kirk assassination when it had to do with Tyler Robinson and the investigation as a whole? What say you?
Well, first off, I don't have access to everything like, that goes on in the United States, um, because I've been overseas since 2016. So actually, at the time that I started the research, um, well, actually, what I did was I looked into the site at first, and I thought, oh, well, maybe they'll never catch the guy. Well, then they came on and said, oh, yeah, it's been 30 something hours and we caught him. I was like, that's not right. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't work like that. It took them like a week or something like that, or to catch those marathon bomber guys or something. It was too fast, too clean, too easy. So for somebody who spent 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year planning, training to do something like that, just to get caught like that, you know, um, it it raised suspicion to me, um, and that's why I looked into it. And the more that I looked into it, and it was probably about a full work week, a full 40 hours that it took me to compile everything. And the more I looked into it, the more it pretty much confirmed a lot of people's. I'm not going to go into conspiracy theories, but a lot of people believe that Tyler Robinson had help. And I pointed out that that is most likely the case. The evidence points to that. That's all I can say about it.
Well, if you watch podcasts, the mainstream media, the governor of Utah, FBI Director Kash Patel, if you ask 10 people, you seem to get 10 different stories. There are people who will tell you, and we're talking reliable folks. We're talking Candace Owens, the Baron Colemans, among others, that say Tyler Robinson did not pull the trigger, that it was an exploding microphone, or he was shot from the back, shot from the side, and mostly the caliber of bullet being a 30-06. I will say, and I have license, I have a what's called a CWP in several states. I do have some munitions experience. I would have said, based on what I saw, that did not look like a 30-06. It would seem that a 30-06 would do a heck of a lot more damage than that. Mark Feltner, what say you?
Well, it also didn't sound like a 30-06. It sounded like it was suppressed. So that does a lot in terms of ballistics. Yeah, and a lot of people think when they think 30-06, they think of the heavy hitting FMJ 150 grain projectile that won 2 world wars and fought in Korea. They're thinking of those military munitions that are designed to penetrate. And there's a lot of stuff out now, and I was actually just looking into it more, but there's frangible ammo, there's subsonic ammo, there's hollow points, there's fragmenting round. There's so many different things to do different things to flesh. Okay. And I don't mean any disrespect or anything to the deceased, but it doesn't work that way like people think it works in the movies. Like exploding microphones and props, and people think that, like, was it Kevin Costner, the bodyguard? They think it's that my job's so exciting and thrilling. When I have an assignment, they think it's boring. So people have a just this com combobulation or whatever. They have this cockamamie idea that things just work like they do in the movies, that every shot from a rifle is perfect. And even at 30-06, it's a heavy bullet and it loses speed the further it goes from the barrel. A lot of people don't think about things from a common sense point of view. It doesn't always happen the way that people want it to happen, or imagine that it would happen, or they're in shock of something that took place and they can't really believe it, so they try to make sense of it and they come up with all these, you know, tarot readings and stuff. It you know it's ridiculous. So I can say that I want to comment specifically. What I did was I just happened to find evidence of an organization that could be possibly responsible. Um, and I think I'll just let you ask the next question. Did I answer that fair enough for you?
Yeah, you did. And now we you put together you compiled a PowerPoint which you indeed sent to the FBI.
I did.
And we're going to take a look at that, and I would like for you to, Mark Feltner, to take us through what you have found in your investigation and what may have raised your eyebrow that may debunk that it was an exploding microphone or it was the one-armed man. Because again, if you watch 10 podcasts, you will hear 10 different things. Baron Coleman is almost a podcaster, almost convinced me that it's not Tyler Robinson, that the chain of custody is incorrect, et cetera, and that Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, is some type of government asset, a handler, somebody in my age range, a secret agent, a spy put into Charlie Kirk's life to woo him, to allow him to impregnate her, Mark Feltner, not once, but twice. And then when he went rogue, sir, they called her and basically, and I'm making this up, Operation Mockingbird is now in progress. We must eliminate the target. I am sure you've heard them all. So we're going to take a look at what you compiled, and we're going to see if we can actually bring some truth, some sanity to what we have seen over the last 8, 9 months. So let's let everyone take a look. And again, if you could please take us through it, and we would certainly appreciate that. So we are looking at the PowerPoint here, and again, you had sent this to the FBI. May I ask, once you sent it over, what response did you get?
It was a bit ridiculous, actually. I sent this not just to the FBI, but I sent it to Washington County and I think the other law enforcement agency that was where Tyler Robinson is being held presently. I forget the name of it, but I sent it to 3 different places and nobody wanted to entertain me. And when I called the FBI, I asked them, did they receive this? And they confirmed. They said, yes, we did receive it. I said, well, is anybody going to use this? Are you going to follow up on this? Are you, because if, I think we'll get to that point later, but this is a big concern because everybody wants to talk about um, how other people might be involved or how it might be part of a larger group or domestic terrorism or whatever, um, and I think I have the answer to that. And it wasn't easy, and it kind of just I don't want to say it fell into my lap, but the I had to follow just some procedural stuff. Um, I started with the booking records. Um, so if you want to go over to start to the second page, so that is the
Okay.
Utah County inmate details. That's the
All
booking
right.
of Tyler Robinson, and notice that it was on the dot, or arrested 4 a.m. on the dot, booked 7:58 a.m. 9:12. So for almost 4 hours to book him. Jesus. They must have had a lot of people in that shit. So this is what I found. This is Utah County. This is where he's previously being held. I mean, currently being held. Sorry. Um, and originally, okay, so the FBI and the media, they all said that, hey, he was arrested three something hours away. You know, um, he was arrested and booked in Washington County, 3 hours away from where the incident took place.
Okay.
So I just started following publicly available records at the time. And then I stumbled on something else that looked suspicious. And then there was a second person with almost an identical name to Mr. Robinson. You want to show the next one? So this is Tyler J. Beddoes. Notice that they both have the same first and same second name.
Okay.
And,
Same first name, same middle name. Yep.
yeah. So he was
Or middle
arrested.
initial. Sure.
Yeah, he was arrested at midnight almost on the 11th, 25. God, I hope that's the same year, right? This happened 2025. Okay. Yeah, time's slipping. I'm getting older. I can't believe it's 2026. Yeah. So I did get this right. So he's got assault, domestic violence in the presence of a child, 2 counts, 3 counts of unlawful detention, obstruction of justice, and public intoxication. And then the only other Robinson that was booked at that time was Geraldine Robinson. So go ahead and go to the next page. Kind of talk about where this is going. So this is
Okay.
essentially me explaining that when I looked into who this individual was, Tyler J. Beddoes, the only information that I can find is that he was a former police or what is a police officer or a former police officer in it's Spanish Forks Police Department, which is
Okay.
18 minutes.
Spanish Fork. Got it.
Yeah, who he is and who he worked for. So the map in the middle was actually I pulled up. I actually made it with AI, and it is real. It is a real map of Utah, but essentially what it does is just mark where the site of the shooting was, where the suspect was booked in jail in Utah County. As you can see, those are very close. And then Washington County is all the way down at the bottom of the state.
Okay.
So the biggest thing is media and the FBI both said Tyler Robinson was arrested in Washington County. Records in Washington County do not show that he was arrested or booked there. You know, you would think even if they didn't book him there and they just transported him. And actually, I'm not an expert on the legality of that. I believe you have to book them in that jail and then prison or transport them over, and then that would take some time. But either way, you can see that there is an arrest date in the Washington County. So if he was in fact arrested in Washington County, he would have a public booking record. Nobody thought, the public didn't think to do this kind of research. And basically what I want to show is that a lot of people are right. They're just kind of projecting it in the wrong way. There is strong evidence that other people were involved, and people want to know that, and they should know it. They have the right to know it. Go down.
So basically, what is this telling us? I mean, if you were to talk to me like I am a 5-year-old,
Okay.
what am I looking at here? The two documents and the map equal blank. Go.
So there's 3 dots in there. I don't know if you can see that properly. There is Utah University, the site of the shooting. There's Utah County. Right next to Utah County Jail is the current resting place. That's where he is currently residing, Tyler Robinson, right next to Valley. Now later on, they showed Tyler Robinson at Dairy Queen near Utah Valley. So I don't, I have records would show that he wasn't arrested in Washington County, like the media wants to tell you. So when I saw that, a completely different Tyler James popped up, a second individual with the last name Beddoes. Now,
okay, so we got Tyler J. Robinson, we got Tyler J. Beddoes. Were they were arrested on the same day or around the same time, correct?
Within 12 hours of each other. Go back up to the number 2 and we'll look at it. Go back up to page number 2.
Back here.
Okay. So we got 4 a.m. on the 12th, and he was booked at almost exactly midnight on the 11th. So 4 hours difference they were arrested.
So 2 guys named Tyler with
James.
the Tyler James. So is Mr. Beddoes' middle name James as well, or is that just his middle initial?
No, that they both have the same middle name exactly. Tyler James.
So
His last
two individuals were arrested 4 hours apart, both named Tyler James. We agree on this?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to show you.
So the likelihood that two guys being arrested, not in New York City, not in Los Angeles, but in Utah, named Tyler James, is not likely. I'm not saying impossible, but that doesn't sound likely to me. My name's Joe A. So a guy named Joe A being arrested in this community here within 4 hours is certainly a coincidence, correct? Get back to this slide then. So these are the arrests. This is the booking information. And now, so what does the map? Why is that so glaring here? So you got Utah Valley University at the top, and why is that Washington County at the bottom? What
Yes.
what is so glaring about that?
Well, if hypothetically, if I had just shot somebody and assassinated them, I wouldn't go back to my hometown. I'd be long gone. I'd be at the Canada border in 3 hours. So
Okay.
um, it doesn't make much sense is from that logic is if someone wanted to get away from it, and we'll touch on that later, but if someone wanted to get away from something that they did, they wouldn't go back home to their mom and dad, you know, because if you're, we've all been kids at one point or young men, you know, and when we do something really stupid, or it shows, it shows in our body and how we react, and your parents are gonna know. Um, and we'll touch on that, but uh, according to the booking records, Tyler Robinson never left uh, Utah County. He never left Utah Valley area of Utah Valley Universe. Uh, so according to the records, and then just by I don't know if it was you know something can only be a coincidence so many times before it becomes a pattern. I just want to clarify that.
So
So
what's the pattern then? What's what if I am if I'm director Cash Patel and you've got 10 minutes of my time, what is it that you were telling me here that these coincidences can only be a coincidence so often, and perhaps
it's true.
someone committing this crime, a 22-year-old kid, maybe just didn't have the presence of mind to go anywhere else but home. Because I assume that I'm assuming he probably figured he got away with it and he could go home because nobody's going to know it's him. Is that possible?
I mean, if you're 22 years old, you live at home with your parents, you're probably gonna be scared shitless, and they're probably gonna know. And basically, that's the story that the FBI went with. So if I had 10 minutes of like Cash Patel's time or, FBI's time, and I'm sure they've looked at this, they've had this presentation, and they refuse to speak to me about it. But basically, what I'm saying is that I know that what the media is feeding me and what the um, FBI is feeding the public, what they're all feeding the general masses is bullshit, for lack of better term.
And why? That's the question. This is BS, Director Patel, according to Mark Feltner, because of blank. Why?
That's a good question. So, like I said, the records don't show him. They don't show him from the beginning being booked uh, in Washington County. So somebody is making something up, whether it's the FBI told the media or the media blew it out of proportion or whatever. Somebody is clearly making something up because, we live in a day and age, all right? And here's my answer. I have to think about this very carefully because it's a good question. Why is this bullshit? We live in a day, in a day and age where nothing we do anymore is private, almost. Okay,
No.
the FBI has limitless tools at their disposal, and some of these people don't realize this, but the images that the FBI showed us were from Google Maps. They weren't from fancy uh, satellite imaging programs. They were from Google Maps. So we live literally in a reality that is monitored almost 24/7, you know. So if that is the case, somebody should have thought about this, about the fact that there's public booking records. People can follow, I can follow, I'll say people. I was able to follow the trail of where these men were booked, what time, who they were, their identities, their addresses, histories, and that was from Google searching, Facebook, uh, TikTok, um, we nothing that we do, even the government, is 100% bulletproof. So if they wanted to conceal it, they should have thought about public booking records, you know, um, and how people
So the
can.
booking records don't match what the FBI, what law enforcement, what the media told us. So
Yeah,
when a Tyler Robinson was arrested in what county, according to you,
yeah, they told us Washington County was where he was
that
arrested.
he was put in handcuffs in Washington County,
Yeah,
correct?
yes, and
And that is far away from Utah Valley University, right?
yes, they said approximately 3.5 hours, 3 hours 45 minutes. That's what the media said, and they're not lying. I guess it depends on traffic, but you know, it would show in the public records if he was in fact arrested.
Of course, you would figure. Now, when we
You
move to
think
this
that?
slide, photos of the shooter, UVA campus. Um, I assume, and it's an assumption that this is supposedly Tyler Robinson, correct? And uh, are you saying that this is or is not Tyler Robinson? What is the reason for this particular slide? What's the significance of this slide?
Well, look at, and there were a couple angles where you could see his sunglasses and whatever, but just look at the way that he's walking. He knows where the cameras are. He's been there before. He's planned this very carefully, or he was taught or trained. You, I mean, just look at the angle of the ball cap facing down, and tell me that that does not look like tradecraft. Tell me that doesn't look like someone who has been taught how to avoid detection. Now, he could just be clever and trying to get away with it, but there's no rifle stuck in his pants. I can see his cell phone, but that's another theory, is that he had a rifle stuck in his pants.
Now,
And
that
another,
is what they claim, that in these photos that Tyler Robinson allegedly had a rifle at this time in his pants. And these images don't really show someone that would appear to have a rifle in their pants. So we agree on this?
Yeah, I mean, there could be most definitely parts of it, but not a Mauser. I mean, maybe. I mean, I just don't see the impression there. You know, I could argue it all day and try and make sense of it, but I can tell you what I see is a very nonchalant looking backpack that modern weapons can fit inside. You know, breakdown guns, bolt guns, AR-10 platforms. There's a lot of modern stuff that's a lot lighter, a lot easier to carry, and it fits in a lot smaller package. And like I said, it sounded like it was suppressed. Um, you know, when it was shot, you know, 30-06 is extremely low. Um, you know, it's almost like having a cannon go off in your face. But it you know, when you have a bullet moving that fast, you're still going to get some supersonic crack. But it did not sound like a full rifle shot. The way when I heard it, it sounded like crack. You know, it wasn't like a boom or you know, a very loud. You know, people didn't really run until they saw Mr. Kirk drop to the ground. So you know, that's another thing is the backpack. That's what I wanted to touch on. Um, so I just wanted to show people what I have and how easy it is to pull things up and put them in a, you know, just a presentation, you know, in a presentable manner where people can get an idea of what kind of, you know, society we live in, how many cameras there are, and you know, 22-year-olds they don't get it. Oh, they don't do things like this so clean and even just get off the
Yeah.
side.
Like, in other
Just
words, all
yeah,
these images, he's either looking down or
yeah,
he's looking away.
at an
So
angle
basically, he scouted out where these cameras were when to
beforehand.
make his escape, so he
Yeah.
couldn't so they couldn't positively identify him, correct?
Yes, he had help. Most, I mean, uh, from what the evidence will point to, eventually, how I'm going to explain this is, you know, I have a possible
Okay.
name of people that you know pretty much helped him. That's what people are talking about now is, you know, did he do it alone? Should other people be on
Okay.
trial? So my answer is yes, or no, he didn't do it alone, and yes, other people should be on trial.
Now, the next slide, what is the significance of this? Okay, now these are photos of Tyler Robinson, I assume, at different times, perhaps at different ages. Again, you added this and this into these slideshows. So
Yeah,
if we start here, what is the significance of what I'm looking at here?
I just, you know, I had doubts that it's all the same kid, it's all the same person. You know, I
A
just
lot of
was
that going around nowadays.
yeah. I mean, it's I think if you look further, there's even more photos of him and his dad and, you know, his little brother and stuff like that. Um, but, you know, if you compare that to the far left with the sunglasses, you know,
Okay.
the quality is poor, yes. But I have a hard time believing that that's the same dude. Um,
That this is not this gentleman, correct? Or
I have
this
a
is not
hard time, you know, I have a hard time believing that. And I think that a jury and a judge would have a hard time believing that, unless you've got eyewitnesses to put him there. Um, and this kid with the gun, I highly doubt that's Tyler Robinson. I think they said that was him. The media said that
Wait a
that
minute.
was
Whoa. This person with the glasses is supposedly Tyler Robinson.
yes.
I thought that looks like I thought
Eh,
a first glance that may have been a woman. But
no, it's a young
again,
teenager.
yeah, we see the Adam's apple there, so we'll go ahead and say that it appears to be a biological male. Um, so again, in looking at these images of Tyler Robinson at different times, his booking photograph does not look like Tyler Robinson in other photos. Is that basically what
That's
we're
that's
saying
what
here?
I'm saying. When you go to trial like this, they're gonna want to know, is that CCTV camera picking up the guy that you have in custody? Is the dude that's on the stand that's about to take, you know, firing squad death penalty, is that actually him in the photos? Can they prove it? You know, and you know, we can go to the next slide, but I do want to touch on. They say, "Oh, we found his fingerprints there." Dolly, he's been there before. The kid went there. I think they said he went there for a tour to go to school there or something. So it's possible
Okay.
he's had DNA there. You know, more than one occasion. So he's not a stranger to the campus. I know that. Um, but and the Discord thing, Discord and whatever social media. You want to touch on that about how that's been floating around while we're in the middle of the slide?
By all means, I mean that is certainly what they claim. So let me ask you this question. Let's get to the crux of this. Did Tyler Robinson that we see on television, okay? This young man here that either his booking photo or when he was going to have his pre-trial arraignment, do you believe that he pulled the trigger and actually assassinated Charlie Kirk, as opposed to folks who say it wasn't him, he's a patsy? He's Lee Harvey Oswald.
My take on this is that he wanted to get caught. That's what it looked like. That's what I want to touch when we talked about before during the first slide is if I don't want to get caught doing something, I'm going to be as far away from that place as humanly possible. I think they wanted the kid to get caught. I think that he wanted to get caught. That's a part of what's happening here is he's caught. They're going to find him innocent, I think. I mean, I'd have a hard time believing that he did this, and because there's just not enough. Discord came out and told, the public or they I that that there was no such messages took place on Discord about he did this or that, confession. There's none of that, so the further along we are in the trial, they're like, "Oh, we got a handwritten letter." If a major company whose interest would be to report something like that as a major liability, somebody confessing to a murder in front of thousands of people on their platform, I would think they would go to the FBI with that. However, Discord is saying that is not what happened. That conversation never took place. So, you know, again, to answer a lot of people's questions, if you have a large company saying this never happened, you know, it's a huge red flag because if I have $1 billion company, I'm going to want to do whatever I can to protect that from any kind of liability. We're back.
So
To the
again, at the end of the day, we are in a place where they claim, many people, that Tyler Robinson not only didn't pull the trigger, no trigger was pulled at all, and that again we got that exploding microphone and his bodyguards giving hand signals. His widow is some kind of spy, some kind of handler, some kind of government asset. At the end of the day, when the chips fall on the table, why isn't Tyler Robinson, who was facing the death penalty, why doesn't he say, hey, it was Israel. It's not me. Don't kill me. Let me out of jail. It wasn't me. I mean, the 22-year-old kid, I got to tell you, I sure as heck would. They put me in jail for a day. I'd be telling everybody it wasn't me. It was the Israeli Defense Force. It was Erica. So is this young man willing to die in the by way of lethal injection or whatever they do in Utah
fire squad.
to protect the identities of the co-conspirators? I mean, that's what I always found hard to believe.
Yeah, we're minus on the slideshow, bro. We're back
Yeah,
to the
no, I know. I took it down for a second just so we could go over what we've seen so
Oh,
far.
from what I can see is they don't have a case prosecution. They at the end of the day they need to prove that that bullet came out of that gun. They can prove he was there. I didn't see him with the gun. Nobody reported him carrying a gun. They said there was a gun in the bush and that he dropped it. That is not a case winning uh theory. That's not how you that's not how you prove somebody's guilty. Saying somebody is
Okay, so
all right, go
what
ahead.
is this firearm? Media released misleading photos of firearm used in Kirk's murder. This is a modern hunting rifle, not unlike what the police and FBI use as sharpshooters. It can be taken down and concealed in the type of bag the shooter was carrying. So is this is the weapon that they claim they found. Is that right?
Yeah, a 10 plus 12 plus pound rifle with scope on it. And the Mauser is not actually built to have a scope. Uh, it had to have a custom fitted uh, special kind of scope to go on. And I'm not familiar. I mean, I'm not an expert on that platform of weapons. Don't call me an expert on weapons, period. But it's just I looked into it, and because I was pretty sure I do know about the Mauser, it was used in World War II. Um, it's a pretty powerful cartridge, and they convert a lot of them to 30-06. But you're talking about this kid supposedly stuffed a 12-pound rifle with a scope in his pants and somehow managed to walk across a field in a subdivision and, just managed to jump off a building with it. Come on, man. Uh, and that's
Basically, if we're in court right now, the prosecution is going to show this to the jury as the murder weapon. We agree on this.
yes, and it's huge.
And you think it would be very difficult for someone at that distance to use this rifle to strike a target in the neck. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and there
And
are a
then
lot.
to conceal it.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say next.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I want to talk about how
So
they wanted to conceal it. So this
what
photo,
now? This
yes,
would be more conducive to the type of weapon that now we're just, I'm not saying guessing, we're alleging here that media released misleading photos of a firearm used. This is modern hunting rifle, not unlike what, so you would say that it is more likely that a rifle like this could have been used in Charlie Kirk's assassination, and that this rifle could have been dismantled and concealed in the manner that they are claiming that this rifle was. Is that right?
Yeah, it would be far more conceivable to think that something like this. However, this photo, okay, that's just what the media showed. That's not what I would think that you would fit. And I know there's going to be a lot of YouTubers come out and be like, "Hey, I can put a Mauser inside of a backpack. Look at me." Probably can if you pull it apart, but that's going to take a little bit. But this rifle was the one media showed like inside of a box. I don't know if you heard about that, but they're like, "Oh
Okay,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
uh,
Mhm.
this was the one." Oh God, I want to say it's 700. Yeah, Remington 700. Which is the general model that police and the FBI used. I think it's still in service, but it's got a variety of different, I believe, 30-06, 308, 7 millimeter. There's a lot of different
So
cartridges.
to disassemble this weapon and put it in a bag like Tyler Robinson had in in this image. So basically, they are saying that that this weapon that we're looking at here was concealed in this bag. He took it apart and put it in this bag. Or did he take it apart and put it down his pants? I mean, which one is it? What are they reporting? That is it in the bag or is it in his pants? Which is it?
Can you fit a 12-pound item inside your pants? I mean, it's 12 freaking
I
pounds, man.
certainly can't. But so they are saying, so again, to me, okay, you obviously can take a rifle apart and clean it, okay,
Yeah,
but to 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 fire this weapon, hit the target, all the pandemonium, and then take it apart, put it
yeah.
in a bag or in your pants, seems like how long? I mean, it seems like it would take quite a few minutes to disassemble this rifle, put it in your backpack, and get away, wouldn't it?
Well, no, you can actually pull the barrel off of the frame. I think it's relatively easy, and there's a lot of people.
This.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're not gonna get it completely broken down like what I'm about to show you, that there are firearms that
Okay.
pull apart and break down, custom built, a lot of stuff, a lot of different things. Like I said, we are in an age where everything is available online, but we're also in an age where we are advancing so much in uh medicine, uh firearms technology. I mean, just the past few years is, AI is taking so many people's jobs, and so I think there's been so many advancements in the world that maybe, only a handful of Americans who collect guns or keep a lot of them, or, like you said, you have a concealed carry permit, but you're
Yeah.
probably learning a few different things. You said you weren't privy too much with long guns. Is that correct?
No, no, no. I'm again, definitely not a rifle guy. No.
Okay. Well, that's like, you know, that's your force multiplier, man. You know, um, like we talked about before, how difficult is it to make that shot? And I said that, the Army's new scope, that Vortex or whatever that is that they've got. it can dial in 700-yard shots and make it very easy. 700 yards, on a 308 or, the 277 Fury that's out now, the new ammo and the new rifle. And our rifles, they are powerful enough to pierce Russian, uh, small, Russian troop carriers, like lightly armored vehicles, um, for the military. They can actually pierce armor from a very long range. So I think people that are not into this sort of thing, and I spend a lot of time researching uh, firearms and different like defensive tactics and what you can do to avoid stuff like this. Just from my own from my own educational background. Um, so I do have some awareness about new things that come out. And to carry a 10-pound rifle plus a 2-pound, you know, I'm being generous here. It's probably closer to 13 pounds. That Mauser is a brick. Okay. And, like you said, there's going to be a lot of stress involved. The adrenaline's going to be up. You're going to be scared, and all these people are screaming and running around. How do you just disassemble? Okay, so that particular gun, you can pull the barrel off. You can pull the fire control group, the barrel and the trigger group stuff. You pull it off in one piece, but common sense would tell you that thing still weighs 13 freaking pounds. You're gonna you're gonna toss that over in a towel, conceal it, and stick it in your pants and hobble around. For me, and we'll talk about this more when we get to it, is I think the kid was limping because he jumped off a 2 or 3 story building, you know, and which is a stupid thing to do, but it looked like he had it under control from what I could see. You know,
Yes.